all to I would like to welcome everybody to our webinar today. It's about how to leverage financial consulting and outsourcing services. If you have any questions throughout, please just put them in the chat, and one of the folks behind the scene will stop us and let us know if there are questions, and we'll be sure to answer them. Maybe we'll do it right at the same time, or perhaps we'll do it at the end. And we will try and set aside some time just to answer questions at the end. I'll try not to talk too much, but I tend to do that. So I'm going to start off, and then I'm going to kick it to Kirsten. And we're going to talk about, so we're going to talk sort of about Rubino's practice. But we're also going to touch on what other folks do and some of the common things that we see out there. And you as participants and as attendees, I hope that you can sort of take what we're speaking of, which is, pretty, I won't say super common, but, it's kind of the way things are done, and see how that fits into what you're trying to achieve, or perhaps into your future planning, whatever that might be. So let's go to the next slide, please. So my name is Patrick Curtis. I'm one of the shareholders here at Rubino Company. I have about 23 years of tenure here at Rubino, and I have about 23 years and 6 months of tenure as an accountant. So I've spent pretty much my entire career with this firm. I started out as an auditor, and I was an audit partner for a small period of time, maybe 4 or 5 years. And then there was an opportunity to fill a void here in our accounting department. And it felt like the right place for me, because it would be an opportunity to connect a little bit more deeply with the clients that we serve, and to not just see them, once a year, and then perhaps with periodic questions, but really it's to become part of another organization, and to connect on that level. And my colleague over here to my, above me on the screen is Kirsten Coombs. Kirsten, would you care to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for attending. My name is Kirsten Coombs. I am a CPA. I have been in the accounting field for more than 20 years, and I manage a team of 7 outsourced accountants around the world, actually. And I've been at Rubino for about 2.5 years. I'd started out as an auditor back in the day, and then moved into corporate finance, and am now working on a multitude of clients in a diverse set of industries that we'll discuss later. Next slide.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that Kirsten has sort of that ability it's kind of hard to have so many clients and to be able to keep your finger on the pulse of all of them. It takes a special kind of person. She's great at it. So our agenda today, we're going to talk about our approach. Of course, I do want to introduce some of the other members of our management team, why outsourcing might be good for you, and of course, some of the benefits that should be realized if you're going to go down this road. We're going to talk a little bit about our industry served, how our process works from a sort of customization standpoint. And then, of course, we're going to talk a little bit more about our process and then how our process evolves constantly. Our technology requirements, sort of our principles, the actual tech stack we work with, and this might be very helpful for many of you just to get a sense of the tools that we use. We're going to touch a little bit on why we think our approach is different. And then I want to end with why this team is so awesome and why we work well together. Next slide, please. So Rubino Company was founded in 1980. Pat McGeehan and Lou Rubino started Rubino and McGeehan at the time. And they both were pretty high up within Coopers and Lybrand. Lou ran the government contract shop there, and Pat worked very closely with him. And they decided to step out of Coopers and Lybrand and fill a void in the market, which was a firm dedicated to serving small to mid-sized government contractors, and sort of the issues that they face. They had a ton of very early success, and then we had this backwards progression into a full service accounting firm from just this little consulting entity. I joined 23 years ago, so 17 years in. And at that point, we had a fully functioning, accounting department, audit practice, tax practice. We added a wealth management department or practice shortly thereafter. When I switched out of audit and into the outsourcing team, there were about 5 or 6 of us, and things were done very differently then. The approach was sort of down at the bottom there of the slide. It was a one-to-one approach. So we had one person dealing with one client, and maybe they had 5 or 6 clients, but it was just one person who was dedicated to serving that client. And you're sort of very locked into that person, and it was pretty difficult to make changes on the fly if something happened. Either somebody leaves or there was a vacation coming up or whatever it might be. So I immediately sort of thought that we need to make this a little bit more flexible. And also we used to actually go out to your office, old school. I mean, they would go out, grab your invoices, code them in QuickBooks on your desktop version of QuickBooks, staple the invoices together, put the check in there with an envelope, hand it to the general manager or executive director or president, whoever is going to sign the checks. They'd sign them, we'd stuff the envelopes, we'd mail them, we'd do a monthly close, including bank recs. And that was the process. And it worked. It worked for a number of years, and it was very effective. But it really limited our reach in that, you've got people sitting in a car for 2 or 3 hours a day going from one client to the next. And any of you who drive on K Street in DC, that's not fun. So I wanted to create a virtual sort of approach to providing accounting services. And I had a buy-in from Debbie Kay, who many of you may know, but she's pretty well known in the industry locally. And she and I sort of embarked on this process of change management, which is going from this one-to-one approach and doing it in person to this team approach and doing it virtually. Today, we have a fully virtual practice. We've got people sort of throughout the US and even overseas. We recently started Rubino Global Private Limited, which is a company based out of Ahmedabad, India. Naloni Raval, who's worked with us for 5 years, first as an auditor and then on our outsourcing staff, wanted to go home. She came here from India, immigrated, went to school, worked for a number of years, and she wanted to go home and start a family and be near her parents. And she had the vision and sort of the confidence to say, hey, would you be willing to maybe consider outsourcing some of the work overseas, and if we could start a company together? And me and the partners, we all talked about it. We thought it'd be a great idea. So we recently incorporated back in February, and we're kind of getting all the kinks worked out, but we've had people working there in a consulting capacity for the last 10 months or so. And it's been a wonderful success. It's allowed us to leverage access some more talent, which is a little hard to find here in the US, and we'll talk about that later. And so it makes us global. In addition to there, we've got folks in Alabama, we got one in Utah, no, not Utah, Colorado, I apologize, Idaho, and North Carolina. So we're kind of all over the place. Next slide, please. Here's the remaining part of our management team, in addition to Kirsten, who's a client manager. We have Kyle Good, who's a senior manager. Kyle also has an audit background. He was an auditor here early in his career. Decided that it wasn't for him. He smarted up a little bit before I did, and he left and went to be a controller at a couple of places, and I lured it back. It's been a wonderful addition to the team. It's been one of the partners that I've sort of worked with as we're building this practice. And when I say partner, sort of like my cohort here on the consulting team. So it's been fantastic. Amanda Lynn came to us from a corporate accounting world, and she is absolutely incredibly smart and is very capable of adapting to new situations. She's been wonderful for this industry and for our firm, and she's a coach and a mentor to many. And then, of course, Lindsay Acree recently joined us about a year ago, and she came from a public background, including both audit and tax. So she sort of rounds out our abilities here. And, you know, all of these folks, including Kirsten, are fantastic leaders. And it's been a privilege to work with them for the last period of time. Next slide. So why are companies choosing to outsource their accounting functions? And I guess the first point, and many of you know it, of course, is that COVID changed the world. It really did, and it made remote work possible. And although some companies are sort of moving back to a hybrid model, the world will never go back to the way it was. And we had sort of hit our stride when COVID hit. We were in the process of, you know, giving up our desks. And I don't mean literally, but just sort of figuratively. You know, I would tell employees, look, if you want to work from home, go, that's fine. So when COVID hit, it was very easy. And it validated in many ways what we were doing. You know, I already had a Zoom license, so I knew what Zoom was. That many of you found out in the weeks after COVID hit. And it worked well for us. It worked well for our clients. And then guess what? You know, many companies ran into issues with people afraid to come into the office or having their offices shut down, and they looked to outsource more. And our practice grew. And it's not just our practice, it's all of the practices in the area have grown and nationwide. So this is a trend you're seeing. It's not just a fad. You know, another reason that companies might choose to outsource is their technology. QuickBooks Desktop, you know, that's fine. You know, if you're using it, it limits you to an on-premise server, and many of us realized when we hit the cloud, it's a more convenient environment. It's quicker. You can access it from anywhere, 24/7, and allows us to work anywhere, anytime we want. And so that idea of going from premise-based technology to cloud-based technology really accelerated. And we are, as a firm, even not just as a practice, but as a firm, you know, we've got 2 programs left that sit on a premise-based server, and we're trying to figure out ways to get rid of those and switch to something else. So we have fully embraced the cloud. We have fully embraced new tech, and many potential clients out there looking for the same thing. The ability to attract and retain accounting professionals is I don't know if it's in a crisis mode yet, but it's pretty bad here in the U.S. There are just fewer and fewer people entering the profession. There are fewer and fewer people taking the CPA exam every year, which sort of indicates that people have found other things to do with their time. And a lot of that is people are going into finance, and they're going into information systems, IT related fields. And there's a choice that candidates are making in school. The accounting profession switched to 150 credit hours to sit for the CPA exam, which I think the profession understood that it is an upskilling of your staff and of the people who are entering the field, but it also is a detractor in that people have to go for another year of school, and that has really hurt the ranks. And then salaries just haven't climbed as much as other fields. So we've got a problem right now, an imbalance where people are not sticking with accounting, they're going to something else. In my opinion, there's nothing more exciting than accounting. So I don't know what they're thinking, but that's what they're doing. And then the last thing, which some of you, not all of you, may be aware of is look, you've been working with the same people for the last 35 years, and they're doing things the exact same way that we're doing it the entire time. You know, I can't tell you how many folks tell me they're tired of signing checks, and they want, you know, sort of electronic process. They want electronic storage of data and documents. And so we find that clients are looking to replace these, we'll call them outdated procedures, outdated processes, and adopt new tech and new ways of doing things. Next slide, please. So the benefits of outsourced accounting, and I'll start with the first one. And to me, this is a byproduct. There may be potential cost savings that you're going to achieve with going to an outsourcing arrangement. Really, what you should be thinking of is, how do I get better? Will this firm be able to do things better than I'm doing it now? Are they going to be able to get the books closed? Are they going to do it on a timely basis? Am I going to have, you know, fewer issues with my year-end audit? You know, are my financial statements good and accurate? Do I feel confident presenting this to the board, to a lender, to whoever it might be? And to not rely on that one person who's been in your office for the last 30 years, but to rely on a team of professionals, that's a benefit. If you look to a large accounting firm, you're going to get not only a team of folks who work together in the outsourcing department, but they also have additional expertise in that you're then connected to a tax department, you're connected to auditors, you understand what the auditors are thinking. So that's sort of a benefit of working with a firm our size. There are, of course, other firms out there who are other sort of outsourced accounting, you know, firms out there who are smaller than us, and you know, maybe there's the boutique firm with just accounting professionals or bookkeepers, whatever it might be, and they may not have access directly to tax people, or if they do, they have one person. So think along that gradient of scale as you're thinking about the benefits. You know, there's firms who are very small, limited expertise in other fields. We're about a 100-person firm, so we're kind of a nice balance, I think. And then there are firms much bigger than us who do this, but I'll talk about them a little bit more later. They have some downsides as well. Additional benefits: scalability and flexibility. If you grow, you know, and if you've gone from a startup to where now you are doing cash flow forecasting, and you're bringing in new lines of business, or you're rapidly growing, you have the ability to scale, because you can say to your accountants, I need to continue to grow. Can you help me? And they will put forth the effort to find the people to help you continue to grow. We've been lucky enough to you know, have a couple of startups who kind of started with us, and they've grown into these amazing companies, and we've scaled with them from the point when we were just doing a very basic amount of accounts payable and maybe GL accounting, and now we're doing CFO and or controller work, and you know, we've helped them go through mergers and acquisitions, and it's been pretty fun, and always leveraging the experience that we have in the firm. Compliance and accuracy: if you've got professionals doing your work for you, you can rest assured that they know what they're doing, and they're going to get the work done efficiently and accurately. And then just having that third set of eyes, maybe a fourth set of eyes. You've got management, you've got sort of the auditors, you've got the board, and now you've got outsourced accountants, and everybody's looking at the data with a different perspective. And we think that you know, we have to be objective, and we have to sort of have a professional, objective opinion about the data we're seeing, and present it in a way that makes the most sense to management and to the board, but also to the outside auditors. It has to be in accordance with GAAP. So it's nice to have that outside perspective, which perhaps if you're a single person in the shop by yourself, you kind of get locked into the way you've done things forever. I'm going to stop now, and I'm going to turn this over to Kirsten. I will probably interrupt because I can't help it, so I apologize.
Thank you, Patrick. And drawing on that outside perspective, you can see the range of industries that we serve. And while you might not think that you have anything in common with a government contractor, we might have had some experience where we can bring that to bear, especially during the COVID situation. And as we come out of some of this, where there's still employee retention credits being applied for, and other, COVID loans that are being paid back, and some of those things cross industries. So we have experience in many of those things. So even though you might not see the alignment, we can actually, have that perspective because we have a diverse set of clients. As we've discussed, government contractors were originally the bread and butter of Rubino's client base. And, then it became more not-for-profit, trade associations, philanthropic organizations. So we, and then with those kinds of firms, we can leverage our tax group and, be doing 990s and assisting with that full circle process for your not-for-profit. We can also bring to bear our knowledge on grants and grant accounting and working with different levels of government. We also have medical and biotech firms. They might be technology, doing cutting edge COVID research. They might be doing laboratory work. We have some physicians' offices and practices. We've also branched into renewable energy. We now have some online retail clients. And then, as mentioned, government contractors are also there in the back. So we've got a range of clients.
Yeah, can I just, I'm sorry, we had a question. Somebody asked if we only work with large clients like Booz Allen. Frankly, Booz Allen would crush us. We are not big enough to deal with a company that large. We do work for, we'll say, organizations as small as 2 or 3 million, up to our renewable energy companies, probably 500-600 million at this point. So we've got a wide range of organizations we work with, but I would say most are on the smaller end, let's say less than $20 million.
Good question. Yes, we work with companies that are as small as 20 people up to a few hundred in terms of employee size. So it really is a range of clientele. And between our backgrounds amongst the management team, we really do have a lot of experience. My background was in publicly traded companies for a number of years in the software, hardware, IT area, as well as financial asset management. So we have a range of experience that we can draw on as well. Next slide. All right, so what we really want to talk about is the customization that exists for each client. When we go through the request for proposal phase, we really try to analyze and understand what your current financial needs are, how many people you have. It is good to have at least a point of contact who has some background in administration and financial stuff, like understanding an invoice and being able to give us bank access and that kind of thing. So we do like to have somebody on site or that we can have as a point of contact. But we really handle most of this on our own. We do things from accounts payable to treasury management. We'll work with your banking relationships. If necessary, we have plenty of banking relationships to assist you in looking for new loans, new banking relationships to help your business grow and succeed and create efficiencies. And so we work the whole cycle of cash on the accounts payable side to treasury management so that we can have accurate cash flow reporting for you. And that brings me over to cash flow and budgeting. Obviously, these two things go hand in hand. Some things have been tough for some clients over the past few years. PPP loans, saved the day for some clients, but there was somewhere even with that, there was still, some tightness of cash. And working on the cash flow and budgeting, with the head of the company, and bringing our advice as to how we think we should manage money and keeping on top of that. This has been key over the last few years with managing liquidity. I'll go back over to payroll and grant invoicing for some of our not-for-profits. We're preparing invoices for their grantors, and looking at cost accounting and assignment and reimbursement, and doing all of this, and then also to budget for the coming year for the grants, to figure out what expenses need to go under there, and figuring out how the time management system needs to run so that we can provide accurate data, and so that we're in compliance. Which brings me over to compliance. Little funny story, when you're bored sitting around at the doctor's office and playing a game on your phone, as an accountant, I kind of think this is funny, back to Patrick's comment that he doesn't understand why anybody would not choose to be an accountant. I'm getting targeted by the state of Delaware for registered agent services, which is a very specific element of something that some accountants do with filing annual reports with the state of Delaware and other states where you have nexus or a presence in. And so I thought it was kind of weird that I was playing some stupid game and that I get, targeted by Google ads for a registered agent. It's a very niche thing for an accountant. But we have, back to all of us having background in audit. We have worked with our tax people for years as well, and we all have state and local and federal experience on tax to some degree. And we have a great team at Rubino that can run the full gamut of payroll, tax compliance, and 990s, as well as corporate and individual. For many of our clients, since they are small businesses and they might be closely held, we do offer, tax work for them as well. So that can be an additional thing where then it's easier for you as the client. You don't need to provide separate information to the tax preparers. We can facilitate that pretty easily. And then with audit,
Sorry.
I know Patrick wants to say something.
No, go ahead.
And then with audit, since we have that background, we can also provide, and we'll discuss it a little bit later, some more detail, and we understand the audit timelines, and we can take some of that burden off of your office. Patrick?
Yeah, and I guess one of the points I want to make is, so the size of the firm that we are, we're sort of that mid-size, about 100 folks, and I mentioned sort of larger and smaller. Smaller firms are super nimble; they can do whatever. They move quick as lightning, from going from one thing to the next, and they can do very, very customizable approaches to work for clients. And I feel like we're still there, right? I feel like we can still customize our service approach to our clients' needs, whereas some of the larger firms, who are absolutely fantastic, they're so good at what they do, but they tend to have an approach, and you either fit into their approach or you don't work with them. So our services are customized to each client, and we have a menu. These are the things we do, and you pick from the menu, or generally we're going to tell you what you need. Things that we think you need, and then we evolve, and we add in cash flow and budgeting services, and we add in grant compliance when you get your first grant, and then we create dashboards for your project managers, for your executive director, for your president, things that they need to manage the company. So it's flexible, and that's kind of that's our secret sauce.
Right. This is going to look different for every single client. There's not one client that uses the same services or has the same setup for any of these things. Some people have a couple of people that they have in-house that they want to handle the accounts payable, and then we might be reviewing it for accurate accounting treatment. Financial reporting, there are some clients that they don't really need it. They're more concerned about their cash flow management. With others, they're trying to budget for purchases in the future, and they're trying to figure out if they can expand to another office. So it really depends on, the set of circumstances, and so there's not one size fits all at all for any of our clients. Next slide. So, but even though everything is customized, these are our main overarching goals for our clients. Maximizing the automation of accounting and finance, the accuracy, and then the accountability and the usefulness of financial information. And how do we do that? Well, the tech stack is incredibly important to all of that. The more manual, duplicative effort that you have, the more frustrating it is, and the more you're going to spend, and then the more mistakes also that you're going to have. I had a client that was using one of the accounts payable softwares, but not integrating it into QuickBooks. So anytime you have duplicate entries someplace, you're going to have timing errors, recording errors, rather than just building off the built-in integration. And understanding how that technology works together is really the key to all of these items. To understand how to use it, and to get information out of it, and to understand the behind the scenes. And that's what we can do for you. You don't need to worry about how often QuickBooks syncs with your bank. We do. We need to be overseeing that and doing that for you. And that's the kind of service that we offer. So finally, that really you can use technology, and we can have deliverables like dashboards that are available for you, or financial statements that are available for you on a regular basis, whatever you need to be able to look at your business. It's not the same thing for everybody. For medical practices, it might be, the use of how to buy supplies for the coming months, and looking at how much you're spending on vaccines and how much you actually have left over after a couple of months, so that you can better budget your cash flow and make sure that you have, the right amount of inventory on hand. Next slide. So how do we do this? How do we do this from a people perspective? Well, we're constantly learning, with technology being such a background and foundation for our work. We need to keep on the cutting edge of everything. And the ways that we do that, we go to multiple major industry conferences annually. Every couple of years, we're attending software conferences or technology conferences or accounting conferences, so that we are, looking at what's new and interesting, and connecting with people to see how we can further leverage and make our processes more efficient. The other thing is learning from our peers. We are an AICPA member firm. We belong to the Greater Washington Society of CPAs. Some of our senior management has been on the board of that. And so we keep up with the latest and greatest. And then one thing that's really important to me that I look for as an employee, and as a CPA, we need to keep up our licenses, and that's important for ourselves. But Rubino really puts their money where their mouth is, and saying, every professional at Rubino, regardless of whether or not they're a licensed CPA, if there's, even if they're not, if they're still working on it, we're required to have 40 hours of CPE every year, and the firm pays for that. And we've done some stuff in-house as well, where we've, been able to be very specific on some of the clients that we work on and gotten that certified. And so this is really important, and it's driven by the employees as to what they think is necessary for helping them in their job, whether it's working on further software skills, further, developing laws for 1099 issuance, whatever that is. we're pretty flexible with allowing our employees to determine what they need to get their professional education to help them in their jobs. And then in general, we're just always staying current with the latest technology and willing to be guinea pigs with some of our partners as well, so that we can be a part of that design process and figure out what really works for our clients, and maybe get some perks too from being able to design that and make it kind of the way that we want it to be.
Can I interrupt real quick, Kirsten, just because we had
Sure, Patrick.
So Becky asked, you had mentioned that there should be a contact person at a client. And I just want to say that, so generally speaking, if we take over an accounting department, or if we just enhance or augment accounting department, there's a different way of doing it, but we need that one person that's responsible there for troubleshooting. There's got to be somebody who's going to look. If we didn't get an invoice, somebody's got to go find it for us, right? So it just helps to have an admin resource that can sort of knock down walls for us, or barriers.
Sometimes it's an office manager, sometimes it's the HR director. It really depends on the client and how they're set up.
Yeah, and Becky had one other question, which I'm going to put off for a few minutes because we're going to answer that question. But let's go ahead and continue.
Yes. So, in terms of staying abreast of the latest technology, we were an early adopter and user of Divvy, which is now owned by Bill, which was formerly Bill.com. And they offer a spend management solution that integrates with Bill.com and leverages that architecture. And so we were able to get in with them, and I worked on the integration of Sage Intacct with the Divvy products. So willing to be a guinea pig helps us be a part of the design process and try to customize it for what we're looking for.
She worked with their chief of product. That's not just one of the developers, but she was working with this, Bill has an incredibly large market cap at this point. But Kirsten was working with their chief of product, which speaks to, number one, the fintech industry, the financial technology industry, that they really want to be able to leverage professionals in the field. And then it also speaks to Kirsten's sort of confidence and ability to go in and sort of talk to people. And we help them enhance and really complete the integration of Divvy through the Bill.com architecture into Intacct is the company that we were the accounting platform we were integrating with. And Becky, that should answer your second question. That's probably our preferred platform is Sage Intacct. Why don't we go ahead and continue?
Yep. Next page. So getting into that kind of information, as to what we use, what we're looking for is we are looking for cloud-based architecture. We're looking for the best of breed, something that has a lot of experience, that has grown through the years and has a solid record. The open architecture allowing for integration, as we just alluded to, this is incredibly important because this allows us to customize our software packages and our tech stack for our individual clients. So a medical practice is not necessarily going to be using a billing software that is just off the shelf. And using something like Sage Intacct, there's a lot of customization that we can do and work with partners to not just have a CSV to be an upload. That's kind of a lazy way of integration. We're looking for automation, and Sage's approach with their open architecture and their marketplace really facilitates that, even to the degree that they are sort of cannibalizing their own product. For example, they have an accounts payable module that has been getting better, but a lot of clients didn't use that. They used Bill.com or Stamply or something else. And so they still have that architecture and that API flowing between the two products, even though they could say, you know, we're going to stop doing this and pull you out of Bill.com and force you into that. So we look for partners that have flexibility to allow us to customize it for our clients' needs, because that's at the end of the day, the efficiency and the client's needs to make their life easier so that they don't have to worry about some of the financial stuff is really what we're looking for. Next slide.
Can I add a quick point there? Can we head back? You know, I go to the digital CPA conference every year. It's put on by CPA.com. It's the business arm of the AICPA. And they've kind of helped the industry move toward this outsourcing environment. And they do a lot of vetting of technology, and they have recommended partners. And generally speaking, I want to work with, we want to work with the partners that they recommend, because they've gone through, they've done the vetting. I still talk to them because it's when I'm there in person, I can talk to the salespeople, I can talk to the developers. Because one thing I've learned is that not all integrations are created equal. And Kirsten mentioned CSV files. You know, some organizations say, "Oh yeah, we integrate with Sage Intacct, and it's a download and upload, and it's just taking data from here and putting it in there, and it's not effective." We want deep two-way integrations between each piece of technology, so that a change here impacts a change there, and a change here impacts a change there. That's what we're looking for when we're looking at the best of breed and the open architecture.
And that's a great point, Patrick, is that where we want to control things as well and securitize things by having a system like Sage Intacct that is sort of the Bible for the accounting system and the accounting platform, then that drives our other platforms that we use that integrate with them. And so we're driving it and organizing it and setting up the security and the departments and the account numbers and that kind of thing in Sage Intacct. And then that's getting pushed through to our other, quote unquote, subledgers. And that's, creates security that we're minimizing access points and having one system that guides that so that there's not an integration or synchronization error. So on to the next slide. So we've talked about general ledger packages. Sage Intacct is a larger ERP that really has so many integrations that are available with it. So depending on what our client needs, we'll customize that situation. And we use Sage Intacct and QuickBooks Online. Those are probably our two largest ones, but we also have a couple of clients that have some more industry specific types of accounting software like Yardi for property management. And then we have clients that are trade associations and they are using large databases for membership management. So we might be pulling information out of there to put into Sage Intacct. So it really depends on what the client's needs are. Payroll is one of those things where, if you have a system that's working, then we want to try to continue with that unless there's some major issues. For instance, when Fidelity stopped offering payroll services a couple of years ago. Payroll implementations are notoriously difficult. And once you've got it up and running, you probably want to stick with it. And so we work with, a dozen different payroll companies. You've heard of all of them. And, we'll do what makes sense. We'll look at the system and see if there are any efficiencies that we can find, recommendations. Maybe you're not using it quite as efficiently, or maybe we can get a general ledger integration to make life easier. But we'll look at that individually. Invoicing, we have a range of clients that have some things like property management tools that we use for that. And again, we want to make sure that it gets back into the GL at the right level, but also not duplicating work. If you've got a subledger, we're not going to, and you have 1,000 clients, 1,000 patients, for example, we're not going to be bringing all of that kind of information and duplicating that kind of thing. With one of my medical providers, we take the summation of the month's billings for their insurance payers, and we account for it, knowing that we can always go back to the billing system to get that. Accounts payable, our preference is bill.com, and we like the integration with the Divvy platform for offering additional credit, as well as spend management. You can do budgeting for employees and set goals, and you can have a range of approval processes and workflows. And then it integrates into Sage Intacct using the bill.com architecture. So again, we're not having to manage a general ledger being set up in 3 different systems and trying to make sure that they're all in alignment. They all work together seamlessly. And what we do behind the scenes is making sure, if there are errors, then we fix them, but they're not, so that it's seamless for you. Patrick, do you want to talk about these last 3 bullets?
Yes, it's time for me to talk again. This is wonderful. So budgeting. Look, we are really good at budgeting. We have some wonderful Excel-based templates that we use, which translate to many different industries, and we have become absolute masters of cash flow budgeting and predicting cash flow. But sometimes, if you're doing multiple resets, or if you're resetting program budgets on a regular basis, it just makes sense to have a tool instead of using Excel. And so we like to use, well, for Sage Intacct, we like to use Martis Tools. Martis Tools is a third-party platform which has a very deep integration with Sage, and it hits not only the GL accounts, but also hits some of the dimensions. I think all the dimensions at this point. So we can do a very deep integration with Martis, and we can do a budget either in total, by program, by department, whatever it might be. So that's our preferred platform there. Sage Intacct does have a native system it was a third-party application called Budgeta. They purchased it a number of years ago, and they're finally starting to put some time and effort into improving that platform. And it's getting there, but I think for now, my recommendation would be to work with Martis Tools. With respect to reporting, we are always investigating and evaluating new tools. I would say first and foremost, QuickBooks QBO has a dashboard, and it's sort of it's limited. Its capabilities are limited, but it can give you things like, here's your cash balance and some of the things you need to know in order to run your business. With respect to Sage Intacct, it has platforms and basically a dashboarding platform where we can create a separate environment for each one of the users that says, here are the reports you need. And I think one of our questions earlier revolved around grants and whether or not we can track spending on grants, within QuickBooks. Well, we certainly could do that within QuickBooks, but then you have to go in and run a report and filter by the grant in order to get the information you want. Whereas the difference between that and Sage Intacct is we have the same ability, and I would say better ability, to identify a grant, because I can also parse that same data by department. It's not linear, it's sort of a cross-sectional view of data. And after we report on that, we can make it specific to one person. So this grant manager has a dashboard that will address their grants. If a drop down, let's say go to this grant, go to that grant, put in a time period they want to see, and boom, there's the information they need to manage. So the reporting capabilities are incredibly strong within Sage Intacct. But if you want to do sort of 5 years out, if you want to do projections, and if you want to look at visual representations of information, there are some better tools, and we're starting to look at those. Fathom is one tool that works very well with QBO. It's kind of superficial, but if you've got a group of individuals who only deal well with pictorial with sort of graphic representations of data, then it's perfect for you. And that's something that we've probably implemented once or twice. I don't love the product, so we try to stay away from it. A new product that's out there is called Girave, and J-I-R-A-V, and it's pretty good. We're going to enter into the sort of their partnership and start to work with them a little bit more. But that's sort of in our roadmap, and we're not quite there yet. And then I think that the thing that holds all of us together as a group is our close management tool, which is Blackline. And Blackline is a Fortune 500 company. Excuse me, they're not a Fortune 500 company, but they work with Fortune 500 companies. Blackline is a public company, and it's a closed management tool. And so Blackline will integrate with your accounting system and then create a platform for you to do reconciliations and to save data. And so that becomes the way that we control our monthly close for all of our clients. And we've got quite a few at this point. So it's a pain point, or it had been a pain point for me to understand where we were in the close. Having Blackline there to help us store the data, control the data, and sort of view in a dashboard format what's done and what isn't done has been very helpful. But what I like the most, and going back to Kirsten's discussion about our audit background and kind of who we are, being pretty good at working with auditors, we have all of these things sort of lined up. It just makes the audit process so easy. Blackline stores all of the reconciliations. So if an auditor wants to see any of the 12 months worth of reconciliations for this client, we're going to give them auditor access to Blackline. They can go in and pull whatever rec they want for any account they want. It's all sitting there, just ready for them to grab. If they then want to go into the accounting system and see some of the details, we'll give them online access, auditor access, read-only, to Intax. So they can go in and pull all of the individual reports if they want. If they need us to pull reports, we'll do it for them too. But the data is there. They can get into the GL, they can find the information. And frankly, we're doing good work, so we don't have anything to hide. And then, of course, the accounts payable software, Bill.com, includes every single invoice that we paid via that system. And Divvy includes every single credit card transaction that we've paid via that system. It includes the coding, it includes copies of receipts, it includes internal controls, meaning this person entered and hit approve, this person reviewed and hit approve, management reviewed and hit approved, and this person paid. So you see the entire history of the transaction, and it just makes the process of auditing easy. You're not going back in your filing cabinets trying to pull invoices. The information's there, it will stay backed up, multiple servers. I'm sure they're all operating with an AMS environment or AWS, Amazon Web Services. And these are large companies with large IT budgets. So trust me when I say that the data is secure. So that's what I have to say about our tech stack. Do you want to move on to the next slide? All right, and I'm going to circle back and talk a little bit more about us. And this is kind of a summary. So our approach is customized to each one of our clients. We do nothing the same. There are firms below us who probably do things a little bit more customized. When I say below us, I mean size-wise. And there are firms above us who are absolutely fantastic. There's nobody doing this that is better than these guys up here, but they do it one way. And they may say that they have a hybrid approach, but it's very rigid. And so if you're willing to, if you want a firm that has one approach for all of its clients, and if you want to fit into that, perfect, go. They'll do a great job for you. It'll work well for you. Your books will get closed. Your board will be happy. If you want a super flexible firm that maybe costs a little bit less and is very agile and move wherever you want, look at something a little bit smaller. If you want sort of that balance of experience and being able to leverage, tax professionals, wherever it might be, and then having a customized approach to how work is done based on your needs, and then we may be a good partner for you, or some other firms our size. There's plenty of us out there just talking about us. our focus is on helping you manage your organization. We're facilitating that front office function. We want to make sure that you have the data you need when you need it so that you can make the right decisions. And then over time, and maybe some organizations it's right away, other organizations it takes a little bit of time, but we're going to become part of you. We're going to become your accounting department. So it really helps us to connect on a level that you don't get that relationship with your auditors. I mean, you trust them. They're absolutely wonderful professionals. But you don't tell them everything, right? So we're the ones you can tell everything to, and we want to be that group for you. Next slide, please. The last thing I want to end on is our team. We've got about 25 people. We are very much a remote, dispersed team, but wow, we work together very well. We have a very broad range of experience. And we're all collaborating within our teams. Like Kirsten has 7 people, Lindsay has 6 or 7 people. So we have these sort of, we'll call them little pyramids of various pyramids of people who are working on our clients, and having the ability to not just be centered with one person, but having a team of people who work for you makes continuity better. It makes communication better. And from our standpoint, it just makes the process easier. And then finally, I would say that, actually, let me stop on one thing. When I started working with this practice, my sole focus was on building a good team. And I felt that if I built a team that would work well together, everything else would take care of itself. And by and large, it has. Every once in a while, we got to research a new accounting standard. But the work is it's just been amazing to watch this thing grow. And then finally, we do belong to a global association of accounting law firms. So if there's something we don't know, for instance, what are the, if you wanted to enter Canada and sell things online, what are the tax implications, which we're researching right now. We have a little black book of accounting firms throughout the world that we can reach out to and connect our clients. And these are both accounting firms and law firms. So it lets us extend our reach globally, not in every location, but most. So that's been a wonderful help for our practice. Kirsten, you have anything else to say?
I would go back to that team approach, regardless of the level of experience that we have. And the majority of us have, more than 10 years of experience, at most levels of the firm. We have a lot of experience and we can work very independently, but we also work very collaboratively together. We have close relationships. If there's something that one of us has encountered and never seen before, chances are when we put it out to the 25-person group that we have experienced it. And 99.9% of the time, one of us has some experience with some software or some situation or some jurisdiction that we can offer support to each other. And we do that regardless of what pyramid we might seem to be in. We're not siloed at all. And then when we do have a question across our firm, the 100 of us generally have some background. And as I mentioned earlier, in terms of that 0.1%, we have networks that we can reach out to very easily and find out the answers for our clients.
All right. So as usual, I talk too much and we don't have a ton of times for questions. But if you do have any questions, please ask them now, and I'll even sit a little bit late if I have to. We will follow up with each of you independently after the webinar in the coming days, just to kind of touch base with you and say thank you, see if there's any way we can help. If there is, we'd love to have that conversation. If you're fine for now, that's wonderful as well. So we do have a question. We said thank you. Well, you're welcome. Thank you for attending. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day and a lovely week on this really nasty weather day here in BC. And we look forward to having you at our next webinar.
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, team.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.